Again, welcome everyone. Appreciate you taking a valuable time out of your day to attend this. My name is Mike King. I'm Senior Vice President of North America Sales. I've got over 20 plus years in the Oracle ecosystem, spent roughly 14 years at PeopleSoft as a former executive there. Broad industry focus, and again, today we want to really talk about our Glide program and how we help clients like yourself move from your on-prem PeopleSoft solutions to the Oracle Cloud solution. Also with me is John Weston, GM of North America. I'll let him introduce himself. John?
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. I also started my career at PeopleSoft, spent 8 years working with Mike, actually, in a number of executive roles in sales and product strategy. And then I started Newberry Consulting Group as a PeopleSoft practice in 2005. So we're celebrating our 15th year this year as a PeopleSoft practice. And then along the way, we started a Taleo practice in 2016 that grew to be one of the largest Taleo practices in North America. And then we sold that practice to Evosys. So if you see in the upper right-hand corner the logo there, I'm the Newberry in the Evosys logo. But this has been a really good transition. I've had a unique opportunity to interact with many Oracle Cloud customers as well as PeopleSoft customers considering migrations or actually doing migrations to Oracle Cloud. So glad to be able to participate today and share with you some of our insights and knowledge.
Great, thanks, John. And for any of those of you that have questions during the presentation, there's a questions icon that you can click on those questions, and we'll take those and answer those at the end of the presentation. So again, thank you. So just a little bit about Evosys. Evosys is a company that's been in business roughly 14 years now. We have over 1,000 plus Oracle Cloud clients that we implemented around the world. Obviously, countries over 30. We have a very high focus on North America as far as our customer base is concerned. We have over 1,200 plus consultants. Very experienced Oracle consultants, because all we do out of that mix of 1,000 plus cloud customers, Oracle Cloud customers that we have, 800 plus are HCM. So we have a deep level of understanding into the human capital management pillar. The other thing of note that's very important is we've done over 80 on-premise to cloud transformations. That includes PeopleSoft, EBS, going from on-prem to the cloud. So we have a lot of deep expertise on how to have clients make this transformation from your on-prem solution to the cloud. As far as awards that we've had, and I won't talk about too many of them, but two key ones are we were the Global Partner of the Year for Oracle for HCM Cloud this past year, so we're very proud of that. And we were also the Oracle Human Capital Management Development Partner of the Year. So again, deep roots in the HCM pillar and financial pillar from a PeopleSoft perspective. So we look forward to walking you through really how we can take you on this journey. From an agenda perspective, obviously the first step is developing the business case for moving to the cloud, so we'll talk about that. And part of that process is accessing your current HCM or ERP environment and what it means to move from where you are to the cloud. And then obviously preparing for the implementation and migration effort, very important. And that's where we really can talk about our programs that help that happen. And also part of what we do and what you would be obviously very interested in is how do you mitigate that project risk? Because this is a transformation of your business, very important. So that's our agenda. So we'll start with the why. And I'll turn it over to John to talk a bit about developing the business case for moving to the cloud. John?
All right, thanks, Mike. Well, I wanted to start by noting that, PeopleSoft has a long and successful history. Hopefully, many of you on the call today have had a successful run with PeopleSoft. And, PeopleSoft has done a good job of keeping up. They've added feature function every year since the acquisition by Oracle. They came out with the fluid UI that's really made the user experience better. They've made improvements on adopting releases through the PeopleSoft Cloud Manager, and they've committed to support through 2030 and beyond. So, I mention this because, I think it's important as you think about building the case for moving to cloud, not to be overly critical of PeopleSoft. And the reason for that is that someone on the other side that's listening to you, might think that you're maybe biased. And so I think it is important to recognize that PeopleSoft is a viable solution. However, with that being said, there are some very much, real business reasons to seriously consider moving to cloud. And, in some ways, first, I guess in big picture is, this idea that, we all are experiencing in our careers right now that, that the pace of change is accelerating and sometimes almost overwhelming. And, much of it is technology driven, innovation driven, customers expect more, et cetera. And, and typically, as a PeopleSoft customer, you're challenged in your ability to respond to this change. It's hard to keep up. It's hard to keep up even just from keeping up with the new images that come out on PeopleSoft. And so, no matter what you do going forward, you have to be prepared for this pace of change that's going to continue to accelerate. Now, from a business value point of view, I've drawn a few points here to understand at a higher level. Compared to PeopleSoft, there are a lot of benefits to being in the cloud. I won't go into all of them right here. I think everyone is getting pretty well educated on the benefit of being in the cloud. And it's really, 3-4 years ago, we were earlier in the process, but at this juncture, most executives have cloud in their vocabulary. The data model is definitely unified with Oracle Cloud. As a PeopleSoft customer, if you have HCM and ERP financials, you know that you have two different instances in the cloud. You've got one unified data model that can really facilitate process integration, reporting, and more. Many of you perhaps are probably, even if you have upgraded to version 9.2, you may not be up on the latest and greatest PUM releases, and and you do have to one way or another manually apply those new releases. Cloud is more automated, and again, back to that theme of being able to keep up. This idea of single platform is interesting, and what I mean by this is that we have a client that recently signed up to move from Oracle from PeopleSoft HCM to Oracle Cloud, and they had PeopleSoft HR, payroll, and Ben Admin, but they also had Cornerstone for talent management. And so when they stepped back, and then they had another product for learning, and so when they stepped back and realized that they could go from 3 or 4 different systems that make up their end-to-end HCM process to one single platform, there was huge benefit in being able to do that. The last point is around innovation, and PeopleSoft is doing its best to keep up, but my view is that a lot of the improvements are somewhat tactical, and that the real innovation is more focused on the cloud, and probably for good reason, right? I mean, the world is moving to the cloud. Oracle's focus from a development point of view is definitely stronger for cloud, and there's just tremendous innovations coming out around chatbots and AI and Internet of Things, and integration with robotic process automation. Just many innovations that are coming onto the scene and being adopted by Oracle Cloud customers that aren't as easily accessible with PeopleSoft. So, as you step back and think about your options, of course, we all have an option to do nothing, but that's actually certainly not an option as time goes by. And there's definitely an option to migrate to Oracle's infrastructure, and a number of PeopleSoft customers have done that. But you can't consider that option without also committing to upgrading to the latest and greatest. If you're going to be on a Oracle infrastructure or other vendors' infrastructure, you're really going to want to have to stay up to date anyway. Of course, the fourth option that we're here to talk about is moving to Oracle Cloud, and there's no doubt it's a big effort. Make no mistake. And that's why it's so important to establish a good business case around it. So, two points here. So, no matter what, as you build your business case, it has to be really clear. It has to be concise and easy to understand. I've seen some PeopleSoft customers put together these big, elaborate business case models and ROI, and I have just observed that it's hard for executives to get their heads around those big, detailed models. I look at it at a higher level. So from a tactical point of view, if you're on PeopleSoft 9.1, you either have to upgrade pretty soon or not. And if you're going to upgrade, that's typically a considerable investment. Anywhere it could be from $500,000 to well into 7 figures. I do see a number of PeopleSoft customers that they implemented back in the 90s, and their business has changed a lot, and so they're really thinking, if I'm going to stay with PeopleSoft for the long term, I almost need to do a re-implementation, especially if it's combined with an upgrade. And of course, that re-implementation is a significant investment. Many customers have to look at additional infrastructure investment if they're going to stay on PeopleSoft. So that's a fairly easy calculation to put into the mix. And I mentioned the example in this last point around other solutions. So if you had like PeopleSoft HCM plus someone else for talent management and another solution for recruiting, that would again be a good consideration in your favor to going to cloud. From a more strategic perspective, I've commented on cloud innovation on the prior slide. So if you are progressive, if you are focused on leveraging the new innovations that are coming out there, that are available out there, then you definitely have a plus in the Oracle Cloud column around ability to adopt innovation as it's coming out. A lot of our PeopleSoft customers are finding support increasingly difficult. Most PeopleSoft customers have a fairly evolved internal staff, but that internal staff, in some cases, people are retiring or they're moving over to newer technologies, and we definitely don't see very many young people coming up. I see it on the consulting side. It's getting increasingly difficult for us to even find good consultants as they move on to new applications like Oracle Cloud and Workday, et cetera. I think another point is improved analytics. So that's something that we've been hearing for well over 20 years, but the business does constantly keep asking for improved analytics. And there's no doubt that Oracle Cloud Analytics, I think, have an advantage over most PeopleSoft installations. And I say last but not least is just board pressure to stay current. If you do have a board that you answer to, more times than not now, the board is asking, why aren't we moving to the cloud? And it's a good question, and the public, in public companies especially, there's even outside pressure now. So if that's a truism for your company, definitely a strategic consideration in making the ultimate decision to move off PeopleSoft to cloud. So I hope this slide is helpful for you as a follow-up as you build your own business case. So I'm going to segue now and talk about the how of how you do this, and two things, assessing your current environment and preparing for the implementation migration effort. So, Evosys, as Mike noted, we've moved 80 customers now, approximately, from their on-prem solution to Oracle Cloud, and there's, in doing that, we've developed a great methodology for making the transition, and as that icon says, moving the ball forward. It really is important that no matter what partner you choose to help, that they do have really solid experience here, because if you're doing things for the first time, it's going to take longer and cost more, no doubt. So I'm going to give you some insights to our program for PeopleSoft called Evosys Glide. So this program has 5 key components, and I'm going to briefly touch on each one. My key message is, listen to what I explain around Evosys, but whether you ultimately, think about working with Evosys or some other partner, these fundamental building blocks you really want to have in place to make sure that your migration is successful. So let's start with the assessment of your current environment. So Evosys, we've developed a tool. Those of you in PeopleSoft world, you know what an SQR is. So we've developed an SQR, one for HCM, one for financials, that you very easily, you just talk to us, we email you that SQR, and then you just do an easy install into your production environment, and you run our SQR report. And it generates a number of Excel spreadsheets that you then send back to us. We take all that data and we put together a nice summarized assessment for you. And then we get on the phone and we review and validate those results. We usually have to do a couple iterations to make sure that the system is reporting, sensible data. But it's really inexpensive. We do it on a complimentary basis, and it gives you some really good information. Here's a little bit about that. Basically, we're going to give you a report that has a nice table of contents in these areas. You'll get a system snapshot. You're on this version. These are all the applications that you have. And then here, we'll give you a nice summary of transactions. So here's the number of transactions in the various, this is summarized here, but in the various tables. This is how many transactions you've had into these different areas in the last 2 years. That helps you think about your migration strategy, how much history you want to bring, and then the user, what the user profiles look like, number of users in these different areas. One of the most insightful parts of the assessment is from a technical point of view. Most customers have done a lot of customization on PeopleSoft. And so you ultimately have to decide, are there customizations that I can just let go, replace by delivered functionality, or maybe replaced by a change in business process? But there also could well be some customizations in one way or another. You just have to take into account. And so these metrics give us a nice count of custom components, PeopleSoft components that you have in your system. We typically see a big spike around custom people code, custom pages, custom processes, queries, of course, and then custom SQL. So this profile here can be very helpful for you and us to gauge the degree of customization and how much effort is going to be required during the implementation to think about these customizations and how that's going to translate to Oracle Cloud. So the second step in our process is to help you with an insight, to help you actually build your business case, and also what the KPIs are that we might want to track to measure the ultimate success of this project. So an Evosys Insight is somewhat, you may have heard Oracle has a similar Insight program. There is some, I don't think you need to do both. The Evosys Insight tends to be more streamlined, but it also tends to be a little more focused and tied to your go-forward strategy and proposal to implement cloud. So, we come on site, we do it through workshops. We'd like to spend a little time with your business leaders to make sure we understand the objectives and vision for this transformation, because no matter how you figure it, it is a transformation. It's going to be a big change management exercise for the organization. At the department level, we want to spend some time to make sure we understand the key challenges and pain points. Those challenges and pain points usually come out pretty quickly in these conversations. The other thing that we do that starts to be more specific and interesting with Evosys is we work with you to identify the top 5 potential KPIs in the core areas of HCM and ERP and supply chain. And so, obviously at the end of the day, there's strong business reasons why you're going to move to the cloud. You might be doing it because you want to reduce employee turnover, or you want to reduce the time it takes to fill new positions in the recruiting area, or you want to reduce AP invoice cycle time or improve DSO. So these are examples of KPIs that we want to identify with you that are going to represent and be able to measure the improvement that is behind the ROI in taking the effort to move to cloud. I'll have some more insight and comment on these KPIs in a little bit, but that gives you a good start. And here's an example. So, we might identify as a KPI that we want to reduce cycle time from AP invoice date to invoice creation in the system. And so we want to be able to benchmark where in the industry we've seen is the right cycle time for the upper quartile, 8 hours, 12 and up to 22. We want to work with your IT department typically to identify a current measure. Where are you today, say at 14 hours on average, and then agree on a target measure. And then of course calculate perhaps the business benefit and hard dollars that might come with that KPI improvement. And then we work together. It's Evosys' job to configure the application to make sure that in our implementation we're taking full advantage of the best practices that are around this KPI that's been identified. Where we start to become unique is we provide a dashboard in cloud that monitors these KPIs and other information that I'm going to share with you. That's like a really nice bonus that you happen to get with an Evosys implementation. And then on your side, you're helping us define things like SLAs around approval process, and and the support on the delivery side. Organizationally, these things don't just happen by themselves. So working with you guys and you guys taking ownership of making the process change, the organizational change to back up the business process change. And now with that KPI on a nice dashboard, we're able to measure that KPI all along the way and come back 6 months or a year after the implementation and say, okay, how have we done on that KPI? And I'm taking the trouble to say this because this really shows a structured way to establish value up front in pitching this to your executives, and also putting a concrete way to measure the return that you get on making this transition to cloud. So from an advisory point of view, obviously Oracle Cloud is a whole new platform. You're going to have some great opportunity to improve on your PeopleSoft system. And these are heady topics, but you may be looking at restructuring your chart of accounts or restructuring your HR work structures. There's almost surely an opportunity to improve reporting and analytics. Many best practice business processes embedded into Oracle Cloud that are an improvement over PeopleSoft that you want to be sure to leverage. And hopefully you're also going to be able to consider some of the more cutting edge solutions like AI and Internet of Things and chatbots, etc. So having some good advisors on these big topics is going to be a critical success factor for you. At a more tactical level, any partner who's done this multiple times, they need to come to the table with a catalog of intellectual property that makes it much easier for your team to make this transition. So, here's some straightforward examples, mapping of PeopleSoft modules to Oracle Cloud modules, just understanding how that maps is a good starting point. As far as terminologies, PeopleSoft calls it GL Business Unit, Oracle Cloud calls it Legal Entity. So, this is a fairly long list of terminologies that helps the team start to adopt the new language, right, and understand how that transitions from PeopleSoft to cloud. You also have, like the differences in core structure. So here's a good example everyone can understand, where on the PeopleSoft side, we have set IDs, and set IDs are associated with business units and departments. We can have companies above business units, there's regulatory considerations, etc. And so Fusion, Oracle Cloud has a similar structure, but it is different. And so really understanding how to map your current work structures, or maybe improve on your current work structures in PeopleSoft as you move to cloud is going to be, architecturally a really big thing to get right up front. And so having clear understanding of how you do that can save a lot of time and energy. All right, so let's get now into the nuts and bolts of moving to cloud and what that really entails. So I like to advise clients that first and foremost is that any partner you sign up with, they need to have a really well thought and mature methodology. I won't go through this whole methodology, but in Evosys' case, we've done 80 transitions, help clients move from on-prem to cloud. And so we've really honed our process around this. And I think back to my PeopleSoft days, I always had an ambition to have a highly refined methodology, but there was never really enough volume, enough repeatability to really establish a really solid, repeatable methodology. But Evosys has been able to accomplish that in the cloud world through the volume that we've done. And the methodology is different. I think right at the heart of the methodology are these conference room pilots. And in the PeopleSoft days, as you were doing an implementation, it was sometimes pretty hard to get a conference room pilot. I mean, you could do it with a standard system, but very often you couldn't really have your complete conference room pilot until many months into an implementation. With cloud, it's much more upfront. You're able to move right to the conference room pilot stage much faster and more easily. You're able to load sample data from a data migration point of view, data that's your data. So this is one of the examples where the methodology is different from PeopleSoft to cloud. You also need a partner that's going to give consideration to other key components like change management. That's a whole subject in its own, but it definitely needs proper attention. Project management, how to manage this whole process. You don't want to be doing it for the first time. And then last but not least is data migration, which I'm going to comment on next. So data migration is one of the more difficult things to do. But it's so critical. We've seen, at least I can think of 2 PeopleSoft customers. They were not Evosys customers, but they had failed implementations to cloud. And the root cause of that failure was their inability to migrate their data. The weight of that effort just seemed to collapse on the team. So, you really want that to go well. And, at a high level, it's easy to understand, right? There's an extraction out of PeopleSoft, which typically is not that difficult. But then there's this transformation that needs to take place to be able to transform PeopleSoft to cloud, and then we have to actually load it into cloud. Evosys, we've developed a set of tools that really facilitate this. So you have this data extraction piece that I'm going to show you, talk to you about, and then once you're outside of PeopleSoft, you're into a staging area where you finish the transformation. And these transformations can be tricky. I'll give you one example, like the relationship in PeopleSoft of if you looked at the customer table and then the contacts that are, under a customer. That transformation to cloud is really quite tricky. The basic data structures are different. And so you really want to know what that difference is before you start tackling that extraction and transformation. You also have data readiness to consider. Data quality is often on the table for cleaning up employee item and customer masters as examples. We strategize with you on the best place to do that. But it's usually a combination of doing some of this data cleanup in PeopleSoft and during this transformation layer. So PeopleSoft or Oracle, they deliver some scripts. They're pretty limited on the ERP side. So we've built out a more complete set of tools around data migration. You have all your master tables across financial, supply chain, project management, and then you have the transactional tables like invoices and AP and AR and inventory and purchase orders, etc. So you definitely, for the most part, want to bring across at least a couple years of data. You definitely want to give that some thought as to how much data I want to bring across, but everyone wants to bring some across. HCM is definitely not easy, but it is a little less complicated than the ERP side. Oracle, PeopleSoft do deliver scripts for this, but typically those scripts definitely need to be augmented. And so, you don't want to, you want a partner that is familiar with those scripts and knows how to make changes to them. One other thing I'll mention here on the topic of job history and number of years history, we have a customer right now who is moving on. They've been on PeopleSoft for many years, and their first going in position was, we want to move all of our job history. And we really advise them to shorten that time frame, and the reason is that your job history, if you've got 10 years of job history on someone, your configuration of various things like job codes changed over time. So there may be elements like job codes that are have been made inactive as of 3 years, 5 years, 7 years ago. So when you try to bring all that data across, you have to take into consideration all of those values that have been made inactive. You probably don't want to do that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg as far as trying to bring across a lot of job history. We generally advise that you bring over 2 years, and then you take the remaining job history and put it into some kind of a format where you can report on it if so desired. So as they say, the devil's in the details. So when you do your data extraction, like you want a partner, that is going to come to the table with these data mappings between PeopleSoft and Oracle already predefined. And you still have to go through field by field. You may have custom fields in your system that we need to take into account. But having this mapping, done in advance, understanding the transformations that have to take place is just a huge time saver. And again, this is why I know of at least 2 PeopleSoft customers that had failed implementations, because they basically had to start from scratch with this kind of data mapping, and it became way too burdensome for them. So Evosys has done a nice job of developing this intellectual property that they bring to the table. For you IT guys, PeopleSoft IT guys on the call, we have developed on the ERP side, a set of people tools objects that we install into your environment with these data mappings already defined. And so with this tool, it's just basically an extraction tool. So we can pretty quickly install this tool and start to extract your data. The tool includes transformations. This is a simple example where maybe the value in PeopleSoft is CA and FL, and we need to translate to California and Florida for Oracle Cloud. But then you run these processes. It does the extractions, the transformations, and then it outputs the data. So having a tool like this really can accelerate versus you guys writing custom SQL to do these extracts. And then the data it flows from the extraction in PeopleSoft. It flows to again a proprietary tool that Evosys has built, where we stage the data. We have advanced transformations that can take place in this staged area, as well as validations, and then we import the data into Oracle Cloud and then reconcile to know that all the data that was in the staging has come through to our Oracle Cloud environment. So again, you really want a partner that brings a tool like this to the table, or you're looking at a lot of extra effort to figure this stuff out. All right, so that hopefully gives you a good idea around what tools are out there to facilitate data migration. So if I can summarize on this subject, definitely having automation in place at the beginning is going to be really important for the extraction, the validations, the transformations, the upload process. It really needs to be pretty highly automated, and it has to also be able to run in a reasonable timeline when you actually go live. There's tremendous time savings with the right tool set. Having just a predefined migration strategy and a plan in advance, and these predefined data maps that I showed you, and predefined and easily configured data transformations is just going to save you a lot of time. And the whole process just needs to be optimized. You want to be able to run these whole processes from end to end without a lot of trouble, a lot of manual intervention, and also be assured of really solid quality along the way. All right, so we're moving towards the end here. We're from a applications point of view and a decision support service, stating the obvious, but you may not think about it as much as you should up at the beginning of the process, is that going live is really just one step in a multi-year process. You want to carefully plan what we call hypercare period when you do go live. And then, you want a really well thought out plan around how you're going to support your users during their learning curve. You're almost sure to want to plan for additional training beyond the training that you had before you went live. Just like a PeopleSoft implementation, you're sure to have a list of enhancements or things that you want to address post go live. There's going to be additional reporting to consider. You'll have to have, unfortunately, you will have bugs and have to address with fixes like you do in your PeopleSoft environment. So that's going to be a different process than what you have today. So you want to think all this through. You want a partner that has a really good outsourced option for support. A lot of the partners haven't reached enough scale to really have dedicated support services, so they tend to use their consulting workforce to also provide decision support. Evosys is at the scale where we have completely separate dedicated teams for support that you can get a lot of benefit from. So one last topic that I'd like to just expand on is this idea of value-based delivery. And this is a really important component, I think, if you buy into what we're doing here, as you present and make your pitch to the top executives. And basically what we're doing is we've developed all these dashboards and KPIs that you install and deploy right into your Oracle Cloud We provide that as just an extra benefit with working with Evosys. It's all based underpinning of the OTBI, Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence, and BIP. You don't need any additional license or subscription to have it. And so what we're doing here is, see how we do this. So there's three key areas, all right, where we're focused on KPIs that we want to identify up front and then track through your early days of production, and then on a month and year-to-year basis. So clearly there's going to be an opportunity for better analytics. So improved cycle time, or reduction in headcount, or reduction in employee turnover. Is going to be really important. So you're going to want great interactive dashboards for those, business analytics. You're also going to want key dimensions around your processes. And so you're going to want to know that your processes are being adhered to, that reconciliations are easy, you have visibility, say at the end of period close, to what's going on across the whole system. So, and then there's KPIs that you're going to want to measure success in this area. And then last is you're going to want KPIs and analytics around how efficient it is for your workforce to be operating in this new system. And it's critical that it's properly adopted. You want to be able to measure the adoption by end users. One obvious example might be a reduction in time it takes and the FTEs to support HR help desk service tickets. So you want to there's usually a big step forward in moving from PeopleSoft to cloud in this area, and it's one again that you want to try to consider as much as possible up front. What we do is we help you identify the right analytics, the right KPIs, and then, as I said earlier, we tie them to the value of the whole delivery process and post-delivery. And Mike will comment on that in a minute, a little further. So last slide here, as far as mitigating project risk. So just some takeaways to have as you build your whole your case for going to cloud. Recommendations for ensuring success before you start. So that's similar to what we're talking about right now, right? Is allowing a partner like Evosys to really help work with you up front, make some recommendations so that you're not, figuring this out on your own. I think that's definitely a really good way to start. Knowing what your goals are and how you're going to measure success. So we've talked about that on a few times here in today's presentation. Measuring your success, showing how you're going to, what you're going to measure and how you're going to measure it is really going to resonate with the executives. The business case has to be easy to understand. Again, I'll say don't make it overly complicated. If it's not easy to understand, then maybe you shouldn't do it. But executives, as smart as they are, they want to get their head around 4 or 5 key ideas and have that elevator pitch to make. And so, that's where you want to just make sure your business case is really solid. Just alignment with the company vision. You always want to tie, your goals and have it be measurable to and aligned with the company vision. Like, where does the company need to go strategically in the next 5 years, and how is this move to the cloud going to help? This point about innovation we've made a couple times. How can you, what innovations will you leverage or gain by moving to cloud? Is important to identify. Our Evosys Insight really helps you do that. And then, as far as access to the right tools and accelerators, we spent quite a bit of this today, helping you understand examples of tools and accelerators that you want to have in place to make this as easy a process as possible. Mike, I'm going to turn this over to you and let you comment on this last bullet point.
Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, from a from a sharing the risk perspective as a partner, one thing that Evosys does is we, with our Glide program, we offer fixed bid contracts. That's it, with milestone type billing. So we are not billing the client until those key milestones are met and are successful. So that's a way that we certainly help mitigate the risk and keep our skin in the game. The other thing is we've talked about, and John has shared, we have some really good tools for not only developing KPIs for the implementation process, but we have dashboards to actually track those KPIs during the implementation. And we as an organization will actually hold back a percentage of the cost of the project until sometime after go live, where we can then go and see how did we do against those KPIs that we mutually decided were important to the project. We'll look at the data, and depending on how that data turns out, that impacts us getting paid or not. So again, this is just a way for us to really help, help ourselves and you as a client really focus on a successful implementation. Thanks, John. Yeah, and just one last thing as a good case study. Shaner is a hotel group that has about 100+ hotels. They've been a client now for about 5 years. They started their journey to the cloud 4.5 years ago, so they were an early adopter. Their growth rate, they were on PeopleSoft, obviously. Their growth rate was so fast, they were finding that their current environment, the PeopleSoft environment on-prem, wasn't helping them to keep up when it came to innovation and growth, and it was really taxing their ability from a resourcing side to be able to do the upgrades they thought they needed to stay on top of things. So they're a client that we started with, looking at taking them to the cloud, and now they're live in the cloud on HCM, financials, payroll, pretty much everything. That they replaced everything that the PeopleSoft footprint had, and very successful from that perspective. It was also a partner that helped us really come up with what we're doing with Glide. So again, a great success story, and someone that really took this on as an early adopter, quite honestly. So again, good success story there. And again, their value at it was getting innovation, getting release software on a regular basis, not having to worry about taxing upgrades, etc. So again, great story. So with that, appreciate everyone's time. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Certainly, if you do, you can type those in, and we'll be more than happy to answer those. We've got a few minutes left. So again, I'll just see if anybody has any. Oh, here we go. So John, what is the typical timeline a PeopleSoft to cloud implementation would take in your experience?
Well, there's obviously factors like how big your PeopleSoft footprint is today, what the geography is it North America versus global, the size of the organization. But I think a reasonable rule of thumb is somewhere between, I would say on the low end, 6 to 9 months, and on the upper end, 16 to 18 months. I have been impressed with how we've been able to do a lot of these transformations, definitely in under a year.
Great, thanks. Got another question that came in here. Obviously, from a transformational perspective, there's an impact on IT. So how does the IT team make that transition to the cloud from what you've experienced?
Yeah, good question. A lot of PeopleSoft, teams or customers, they've built some really good, solid teams, and so they want their best people on those teams to move forward to cloud. And so, it's really important to recognize that and make them feel comfortable that they're moving forward with you, provide them with the proper training. But also, you may find you need to backfill some of these positions. Just outsource some extra support, from a partner like a Newberry, while you do it, and so that your best IT resources that are focused on PeopleSoft today can really start to focus on the cloud going forward. The other thing I would note is that typically there's less. You do need technical support, but because it's a cloud solution, that you don't have the heavy technical layer like you have with PeopleSoft, managing your own environment, making customizations with people tools, etc. And so there's an opportunity for your IT team to be more focused on improving business process, working with the business to get wider adoption, better use of the system, and not as much of a technical load.
Okay. We got one more here, John, on the Insight. Interesting program. How long does that typically take?
Insights, I would say they're going to vary from a couple days to a couple weeks.
Okay.
Again, it's going to be influenced by how big your PeopleSoft footprint is, and are you global versus North America, just how big of an organization. But most organizations don't want to take too much time to do this, so we try to make it as absolutely streamlined as possible. That 80-20 rule, you get 80% of the value out of 20% of the effort.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all we've got so far. So we're getting close to the end of the hour here. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance, and certainly you have our contact information. If any other questions come up, please don't hesitate to reach out. And again, thank you very much for attending.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.